Hello there, it's been a while since I've made a proper video, so apologies for that. But without further ado, let's get cracking with this one. The 2017 Yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses has been released, and this is what it looks like. Now, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness or you don't know much about Jehovah's Witnesses, basically the Yearbook is a yearly publication that Watchtower releases where it talks about its accomplishments and provides a list of statistics to show how well its work is going in various parts of the globe. Taken at face value, these numbers always look impressive. I mean, what's to be ashamed about when you have an organisation with over 8 million members and which is increasing, albeit by not very much. What's really interesting is when you start comparing the numbers from previous years, and then that tells you the story of the organisation and what direction it's moving in. So that's my basic introduction to what a yearbook is, and now I'm going to give you 5 interesting things that I've noticed in the very latest yearbook just from giving it a quick skim through. The first thing I noticed was a section titled JW Broadcasting Gives Us Strength and Refreshment, and that begins on page 24, and as you would expect, it's a self-congratulatory pat on the back for JW Broadcasting and how wonderful it is. But just turn over the page to page 26 and you have the following paragraph. Cody from England says, "Thanks for all the time and effort you put into making JW.org, JW Broadcasting and the Caleb and Sophia videos. Thank you for making the Bible easier to understand. I was baptized when I was 8. When I'm a bit older, I'm going to volunteer to help build kingdom halls. And I would like to work at Bethel. I'm 9 now, so I've not got long to go." I mean, wow. Just wow. I'm not aware of there being a younger age in Watchtower literature when it comes to ages being put forward for suggestions for baptism. Previously, I was aware that the youngest age the society would write about was 9. So, and 9 is pretty young. But now we're getting somebody being put forward who's currently 9 but got baptized at the age of 8. If you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this, I would ask you, what exactly is the difference between an 8-year-old being allowed to be baptized and an infant being baptized in a Catholic church? What's the real difference? Because you're still dealing with a human being who is not yet old enough to decide what they want for themselves, who they will be in the future, what their future beliefs will be. You are baptizing someone who is unrecognizable from the individual they will turn out to be when they are an adult. How can you take any pride in an organization that draws members in by baptizing them from the age of 8? The second thing I wanted to show you is on page 177, where it gives you a breakdown of the grand totals from the year. And one figure that always interests ex-JWs is the figure for memorial partakers, because I'll try to explain briefly why that is. But if you look on the summary page, it says that in 2016 there were 18,013 memorial partakers. Well, that's interesting because memorial partakers are those who partake of the memorial emblems at the memorial. And that's significant because those who do that, those who eat the bread and drink the wine at the annual memorial observance, are indicating that they are of the 144,000 spirit anointed followers of Christ. So in other words, they're saying that they will rule in heaven in the future over the paradise earth that's been cleansed at Armageddon. Now, what's interesting is that this number has to stay low in order for Watchtower's teachings to make any sense. For example, for a number of decades, the number of memorial partakers was between 7,000 and 8,000, which it needed to be because the total number of anointed ones, by definition, according to Watchtower teachings, has to be no more than 144,000. So if you're getting into the tens of thousands in a single year for a group of people that's supposed to stretch back all the way to the first century Christians, you know, the maths just don't add up. Now, for 2016, we had over 18,000 individuals claiming to be Spirit-anointed followers of Christ who will be part of that 144,000 number. And that's up from 15,000 in 2015. I know a number of ex-JWs like to speculate that Watchtower will inevitably have to get rid of the 144,000 teaching and start saying, oh, well, it's a symbolic number, which is frankly how all other Christians interpret it. Personally, I think it's more likely that instead of doing that, they will continue to print material in the literature that weakens the position of those who are partaking at the memorial. They already did that, I think, in either 2010 or 2011, by publishing an article that called into question the mental status of those who partake at the memorial. I think we're more likely to see that kind of rhetoric to kind of downplay the numbers as much as possible and try to lower the kudos that's attached to being a memorial partaker. Of course, it would be much easier for them to get rid of the 144,000 teaching and say it's symbolic, but I just don't believe that the current Watchtower leadership or governing body has the imagination or guts to do anything quite so drastic. We're staying on page 177 for my third point, which has to do with that little paragraph at the bottom that speaks about the amount of money spent on special pioneers, missionaries, circuit overseers, and it also gives the number of ordained ministers who staff the branch facilities, so the number of Bethelites. And as you can see, the number for 2016 was 19,818. Now, remember what I said earlier about comparing the numbers from previous years, because if you go to last year's yearbook, the number for 2015 was 26,011. So that's a 24% reduction in Bethelites and just over 6,000 Bethelites who've been sent home. Now, if you've been following my channel or if you're familiar with what's going on with Watchtower at the moment, you will know precisely why that is. There was an announcement at the annual meeting explaining that Watchtower is, how did they put it, is redirecting its funds to the preaching work and scaling down operations and whatever words they used. Basically, they're running out of money. And in order to make best use of funds, they have let go of a number of Bethelites. Now, what we didn't know previously was how many Bethelites that was. We just had to assume it was a lot. But now we know that it was very nearly 1 in 4 Bethelites that ended up getting sent home. Now that's pretty big. Imagine at the beginning of 2015 or at the beginning of 2014, sitting in a Bethel dining room, you know, with, as far as you can see, on all of the tables, all of your fellow Bethelites. Imagine someone whispering in your ear that within a year or so, 1 in 4 of the people you're looking at will no longer be there. They will just have gone. That's an astonishing number of people. And it makes perfect sense from a financial point of view. It's a smart thing for Watchtower to do. But in no way is it something that they can be proud of if they are an organisation that aspires to be constantly on the increase, constantly needing more people and more resources to get the work done. If that's the case, why are they letting people go? And I'm sorry, but it's not about the preaching work. It's not about redirecting efforts to the preaching work, because as I'm going to show you in the final 2 points, the preaching work isn't really getting anywhere. And also, it wasn't just Bethelites that they fired, it was also special pioneers. The reason why they got rid of special pioneers is because special pioneers have to be paid a stipend, they received money from Watchtower, so they got rid of those so that they no longer have to pay them money. If it was purely to do with furthering the preaching work, regardless of money, they would be increasing the number of special pioneers, not reducing them. The fourth thing I wanted to show you is towards the end of the 2016 service year report, where we have the numbers for the United States of America, which of course is the heartland for Watchtower. It's where the movement was formed. It's where there is the biggest number of Jehovah's Witnesses, currently 1,198,026, more than any other country. Apparently in the New Paradise, Jehovah is most keen on having Americans more than any other nation. But what's most significant about these numbers is if you look towards the right of the page, or towards the right of the figures, you see that there were 1,195,081 publishers in 2015, which increased to only 1,198,000 in 2016. That's an increase of only 2,945. Now you might be thinking, what do you mean only? That's a massive amount of people. But again, we need to compare that number with the number from previous years. So what I did was, I got the yearbook records for the last 10 years, and here they are, just so you can see for yourselves what figures I used. And when I took those figures and put them into a graph, this is the graph that I found. So this graph represents the growth in terms of real numbers from year to year over the past 10 years. And you can see quite clearly that there is an overall downwards trajectory. If you don't see the downwards trajectory, then let me put it another way. If you are a Jehovah's Witness watching this, and you want to see increase, would you rather have the graph turned this way round or the other way round? I think I know what your answer will be on that. I find this incredibly exciting because what I'm seeing on that line is a line that is going up and down, but mostly working its way towards zero, and is very likely to go beneath zero given the trajectory that we're looking at. I find that immensely exciting, to think that in the heartland of Watchtower, in the United States of America, where the movement was born, people are waking up in sufficient numbers to completely, or not completely, but to almost negate the amount of growth in terms of baptisms. I find that, frankly, a cause for celebration. And this brings me rather neatly to my final point, which is, well, okay, let me put it this way. When I was looking at the yearbook figures, I live in Croatia, so I'm obviously going to want to know what's the situation for witnesses in Croatia. And what I found was that there was actually a slight decrease. So there was a slight decrease of 108. So there were less witnesses in Croatia in 2016 than there were in 2015 by 108, which is pretty much a congregation. Now, then you start thinking, well, what about other countries? What about Slovenia to the north? You know, we had to drive through Slovenia on our way to the UK. What about in that country? Well, they too had a reduction of 22. So minus 108 in Croatia, minus 22 in Slovenia. What about Bosnia to the south? They had a reduction of minus 24. What about Hungary to the northeast? They had a reduction of 365. Poland had a massive reduction. They went bonkers. 2,071 left in Poland. The Netherlands, 18 left. Portugal, 149 left. Romania, 219 left. Greece, 55 left. I'm saying left. I'm talking about obviously reductions. I'm not talking about the total number who left. We won't know that number. But what I'm saying is that these countries all had reductions. They're all shrinking in terms of the number of witnesses. The United Kingdom, they didn't have a reduction, but they only had an increase of 26 publishers over the previous year. 26. That was all they managed. For all of the hours of preaching, for all of the cart witnessing, for all of the Bible studies, for all of the meetings and hours of meetings and assemblies about the importance of pioneering and seeking first the kingdom and trying new techniques on the ministry, they managed for the entire country an increase of 26. Then I got to thinking, if I could create a map showing the countries in Europe where there was a reduction in publishers, what would that map look like? Because it feels as though in my own part of Europe, a lot of these countries are sort of bordering each other. What would this map look like? Well, here is the map. And as you can see, arguably half of Europe is in decline when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses. And I am proud to be living in that part of Europe, in Croatia. But seriously, what a fantastic thing to be living in a time when so many people are waking up, that a continent like Europe that is so densely populated and full of so many people and so many different cultures, half of that continent is in decline. I believe that these are shocking numbers for Watchtower, and I think that's why it took so long for the yearbook to be released on jw.org, because they did originally promise it would be released much earlier. But I can't help but wonder whether there was some frantic decision-making going on at Watchtower headquarters, and they were trying to figure out precisely how they would deal with this. But these numbers are not good. They are not good for Watchtower. They are fantastic for me and those like me who believe very strongly that Watchtower is not just wrong, is not just a false religion, but also that it's harming people's lives and breaking up families and failing to protect children and even killing people when it comes to the teaching on blood transfusions. So what a happy note to end this video on, if again you're like me and you want to see some progress in terms of cults in general, and you want to see that people are turning their back on that kind of nonsense. It would appear that slowly but surely that is exactly what's happening. And by the way, I obviously did that map of Europe. I also should mention that Canada is in decline when it comes to the number of Jehovah's Witnesses. Australia is in decline when it comes to the number of witnesses. And New Zealand is in decline when it comes to the number of witnesses, and a lot of other countries too. So I really do believe in seizing good news and celebrating wherever we can, and this is definitely good news. So that's it really. I will have more videos coming soon. I'll shortly be releasing a video showing my road trip across Europe to go and collect the first copies of The Reluctant Apostate, and the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that it's made it onto the bookshelf at long last. So really thrilled to have it finally in paper and ink. I haven't forgotten about the JW Broadcasting rebuttals. I realise I am seriously behind with them, and I'm trying to figure out a way of bringing myself back up to date. Obviously, it was just purely to do with the demands of getting the book finished, but now that it's not behind me, it will always be with me. But now that I can at least begin to move back to being a YouTuber, I can start thinking about how I'm going to catch up. There's also another video I'm excited about, which I'm hoping I will be putting up soon, and that's actually an interview with someone who very nearly died as a result of the prohibition on blood transfusions. So I'm hoping that that will be with us in the not too distant future. So those are a few things to look forward to, but until then, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for watching.